Welcome to the Arts Funding Information session. My name is Jenny Spear and I'm the Program Manager of the Key Arts Organisations at artsACT. In this session, we will give you a brief overview of the new arts activities funding and the application process, including information about making your application as competitive as possible. A broad range of arts activities can be supported, including but not limited to the creation or commissioning of a new arts project or artwork, the production or public presentation of new artworks or events, professional or skills development, a residency or mentoring opportunity that is significant to the development of an arts practice, the revival and or reinterpretation of existing material, noting that arts activities funding has a focus on the creation of new work. So while funding may be sought for the revival or reinterpretation of existing work, the application does need to clearly show how this is addressing the funding aims, which I will outline later. And it's also important to note that screen and film-based activities are not funded through artsACT, and any inquiries about that sort of funding should be directed towards Screen Canberra. So, the new arts activity funding is meeting community requests by providing increased flexibility, more responsive timeframes, certainty around opening, closing and announcement dates, consistent criteria for all arts activity funding, the increase to maximum available funding, also the fact that feedback can be immediately sourced and applications can be resubmitted. So you can get feedback from artsACT staff and then reapply. The key features. So the new arts activity funding has two streams. There's request for funding from $500 up to $5,000, and then requests for funding from over $5,000 and up to $50,000, which will open twice a year, with fixed opening, closing and announcement dates. So, funding for small projects and activities up to $5,000 is open all year, and applicants are notified of the outcome within 6 weeks. Applications can be made at any time, however, must be submitted at least 6 weeks before the start date of the activity. And to allow for a quick turnaround, applications will be assessed by artsACT staff. Successful projects activities should be completed within 6 months of the date at which the funding is granted, but you can request for up to 12 months if this is needed. For large projects activities from $5,000 up to $50,000, there will be 2 rounds each year. Applications will be assessed by an external panel of assessors, and applicants will be notified of the outcome within 3 months of applying. These activities projects should be completed within 12 months, but up to 24 months, 2 years can be requested where required. And there will be fixed opening, closing and announcement dates across the years. So there are now fewer restrictions on eligible activities, an increased cap on funding requests, and a focus on the creation of new work. Also, you are now able to include a video pitch to support written responses to the assessment questions. So remember, it is the information, not the quality of the video, that is important here. So who can apply? Individual artists who live in Canberra or whose practice is clearly based in Canberra. Groups where the majority of the members have a Canberra-based practice. In such cases, this group will need to nominate one person to take legal and financial responsibility for any funding, or be auspiced by an incorporated organisation. And these organisations need to be based in Canberra. So bear in mind that applicants who do not reside in Canberra must specifically and strongly demonstrate that their practice is based in Canberra. And generally, This would only apply to people living in the immediate Canberra region. And if you want more information on that, it's available on the artsACT website. You cannot apply if you have any unacquitted funding from the ACT government. However, you can apply if you have funding that is not yet due to be acquitted. Applying for funding. For requests from $500 up to $5,000, applications for funding are now open and can be made at any time. However, applications must be submitted at least 6 weeks before the activity start date. You may submit one application at a time and receive funding once each calendar year. If you apply for funding and are unsuccessful, you may seek feedback from artsACT staff and reapply for the same or a different activity. You can apply in this category up to 3 times a year and can also apply to the $5,000 to $50,000 project category for a different activity or another stage of your up to $5,000 activity. So with requests for larger projects, so over $5,000 and up to $50,000, this opens twice a year with fixed opening, closing and announcement dates. So the current round opens on the 1st of June and applications will close on the 31st of July. Funding will be announced by the 31st of October and you can start your activity by the 1st of December. The next round of funding will open on the 1st of December and applications will close on the 28th of February. Funding will be announced by the 31st of May 2019 and you can start from the 1st of July 2019. You can submit one application per round and can only receive funding in this category once each calendar year. However, you may be part of more than one application. For example, you can apply for your own activity and be a paid artist or a member of a group or organisation submitting another application. If you apply for funding and are unsuccessful, you may reapply in the next round for the same or a different activity. And we encourage you to seek feedback from us on your application. You can also apply to the up to $5,000 project category for a different activity or another stage of your $5,000 to $50,000 project. Arts development supports new and exciting ideas and supports artists to develop their skills and practice. Arts participation and access engages the community as active participants in artistic skills development, in inclusive and accessible arts activities that reflect the diversity of the community. And arts opportunities, it assists artists and organisations to reach new audiences and markets, artists and organisations to connect nationally and internationally, including through residences and cultural exchange, and assists work to be showcased to national and international audiences. So now what I'm going to do is hand you over to Anne, and Anne is going to talk some more about the intricacies of the new funding.
So now that you've worked out whether or not you're eligible to apply and hopefully have some idea of the sort of activity that you're interested in, now we come to writing your application. And this is true for both the under 5,000 and the over 5,000. And it seems fairly straightforward, but there are a number of applications that we get each year where we're simply not able to fund the application or even truly assess the application because there are some fairly straightforward things that aren't included. So using plain English, this is not the time to use the sort of academic language that you might have needed at university. Keep it clear. Remember that whoever is reading your application, assessing your application, probably doesn't know anything about you or your arts practice and may have very limited knowledge about your art form. The under 5,000 applications will be assessed within artsACT, and we all have differing backgrounds. The larger applications will be assessed by a panel of assessors, but it may have people from art forms which are not your own. So if there are terms that people might not understand, explain them, and generally try and keep the content fairly easy to understand. Use the word limit. That doesn't mean if it says that there's 400 words, you don't need to use exactly 400, but we do always have some applications where they've sort of given us one sentence and that's it. It's very unlikely that you'll be able to explain your project in one sentence. So use your word limit. Think about all the information that the panel might want to understand your application. Share your enthusiasm with your assessors. And that really just means make your project look exciting. You're presumably excited about it. Try and share some of that passion with the assessors without forgetting about using the plain language. But just remember that this is something that you want the assessors to be excited about. Quality support material, we'll talk more about support material later on, but give us the best support material you can. We understand that sometimes it might be a work in progress. If you're asking to record music, you may only have something that's been recorded in your bedroom so far. That's fine, but just make sure that it's the best that you've got available. This one's really important. Ask somebody else to read your application. Even if you've applied and been successful on a number of occasions, somebody else will be able to look at it and say, I don't quite understand that, or what did you really mean by this? So if you can finish your application a few days before it's actually due, ask somebody to read it, you'll find that that will help. You can also ask artsACT for information about applying, but we are not able to read specific applications. Okay, these are the questions that you'll be asked to answer. What is the activity? How does your activity meet one or more of the funding aims? How will the activity be delivered? Fairly straightforward, there's no trick questions. We're not going to ask you for huge amount of analysis, but we do need each of those answered clearly. So what is your activity? What are you going to do? Also, to a certain extent, why are you going to do it? Why is this an important activity for my arts practice now? What is it about this activity that is special that I really want to do? Funding aims, Jenny went through those earlier. So address one or more of the funding aims. You don't need to address all three. If your project doesn't have any community outreach outcomes, don't address that. So just choose the ones that are most appropriate. Have a look at the dot points underneath them. Think your way through the questions. How will your activity be delivered? Who's going to be involved? Where are you going to do it? When are you going to do it? How long is it going to take? What else do I need to be involved to make this project happen? You're welcome to include, if it's a more complex project, include a separate timeline. Include a list of other participants. So think again, what are all of the things that the panel is going to need to understand my project and to be confident that I can do my project? So part of the how will this be delivered is why are the people that are involved in the project the right people? Do they have skills that I don't have? Are they other people that I need to collaborate with? Why are they the right people to collaborate with? If you're exhibiting in a particular space, why is that the right space for this project? Once you've answered those three questions, these are the next two most important things. Deliberately haven't gone through a detailed budget now, but our handbook, which is online, does actually give an example of a sample budget. The most important things about a budget is that it needs to be clear, we need to understand what's going on, and it needs to be balanced. My suggestion with your budget is you'll be asked for an income statement and an expenditure statement. Start with the expenditure. What are all the costs associated with this project? Your income statement then simply says, well, how am I going to get this money together? I'm going to ask for some of it from artsACT. Maybe I've got some other grant. Maybe I'm going to provide some of the money myself. Maybe I'm going to provide some of it in kind. So be very clear in setting out, this is my expenditure, this is my income. In terms of in-kind support, you are most welcome to include that, and that may well include your own time on the project. But if you're going to include in-kind support, it needs to be included in both the income and the expenditure. If you are going to include your own time, again, it needs to be included in both. If it is a project where you're actually asking for a very small amount of money, but your in-kind support is really large, you may choose not to include that actually in your budget sheet because it may make your budget unnecessarily complicated. There's a space below the budget for any explanation, and please feel free to put your time commitment there so that assessors are aware of how much time you're putting into the project, but it's not necessarily something that you need to include in your budget sheet. The other sorts of information that it's useful to include below your budget, particularly in terms of payment of artists, how have you arrived at those fees that you're paying other people? How have you arrived at the cost of the venue or anything else? So that will just give you a further explanation of your budget. Support material. You must provide a CV for yourself and any other key people involved in the project. You must include quotes for any major expenditure items. And you must include a confirmation from anybody else or any other facilities that are involved. So if you're going to exhibit at a particular exhibition space, you need confirmation that that's going ahead. If somebody's going to work with you, you'll need confirmation that they're available. Recent high quality art form support material is almost always required. There'd be a few kinds of applications where you might not include that. Just provide the best that you can. Make sure that it's relevant. As far as possible, make sure it's recent. The most important thing about the support material is that if the panel doesn't know who you are, they can read your application, but it's often when they actually see the support material or listen to it that they start to understand you as an artist. So they can look at your visual artwork, they can read your writing, they can hear your music, and they will actually start to understand who you are. That makes it a lot easier for them to assess the application, but also starts to understand you as a person and think, okay, I really would like to see that musician go ahead. So it's very difficult to get funded without adequate support material. You can also include, if it's a large project and you need to, marketing plan, detailed timeline, accessibility plan if it's a community arts project, additional confirmation letters. I often get asked about letters of support. If it's a big project and you want to include 1 or 2 letters of support from other people that you've worked with and things, that's fine, but they're not critical. What is far more critical is that the people who are actually going to be involved in the project put letters. So don't run around and think, oh, I'll just get a letter from here, there and everywhere. Unless it's directly relevant to the project, it's probably not helpful. Having said that there are a lot of things you do need to include as support material, I would also ask you to think about how much support material you're providing. Particularly on the larger panels, our panels are busy, they've got to read a lot of applications. If you've bombarded them with a whole lot of secondary material that's not particularly important, they may miss the really important items. We're very happy to provide advice on what support material to provide. If you're not sure, you can give us a call. So as we've said, the up to 5,000 applications will be assessed in-house by artsACT staff. Each application will be looked at by a minimum of 2 and usually 3 staff members. For the 5,000 to 50,000 category, they will be looked at by a panel of outside assessors from a variety of art forms. The sort of things the panel will be looking for, or artsACT staff: how is the activity interesting, different, or important? Really what that means is this something new for the applicant? Is this something that is really important for their career development? Is it something that the community is really interested in being involved in? Benefit: how does it meet one of the funding aims? And planning: is there evidence in the application that you have planned this project, that you know that you can achieve it, that you've actually thought through all the aspects of the project? And does everybody that is involved in it have the necessary experience to bring that to fruition? Very quickly, the general procedures are: we'll run a quick eligibility check, make sure that you're an ACT-based artist, that the timeframes are correct, that sort of thing. It'll be assessed by peers. The peers will then rank all of the applications by art form, and they will make a recommendation as to the funding. The funding recommendations will then go to the minister. In the case of the 5,000 to 50,000, the minister will make that funding decision. People will then be notified of whether or not they've been successful, and they'll be able to receive feedback. You can receive feedback whether you've been successful or not. If you've not been successful, you can receive feedback. You can then immediately turn around and apply in the next major round, or if it's an under $5,000 application, you can reapply again straight away. We do have a maximum of applications for the under 5,000 for 3 times in the year. If you've not been successful by that time, we probably need to work with you a little bit more, or you might need to go away and have another think about exactly what it is that you want to do or how you're portraying that.